All right, welcome to this deep dive. Today we're tackling a really fascinating area, how artificial intelligence is becoming a truly transformative tool in healthcare. Specifically, we're looking at how it helps detect diseases much, much earlier than before. And the key here seems to be using data, all kinds of patient data for screening.
That's right.
Think about the challenge. Finding diseases early, often way before someone even feels sick, well, it's absolutely critical for better outcomes. We all know that. But doctors, healthcare teams, they're just swimming in information, aren't they? I mean, imagine trying to sift through thousands of medical images, lab results, years of notes, maybe even complex genetic stuff for every single patient.
Yeah, it's immense.
It seems incredibly difficult, almost impossible not to miss something subtle, something that could be a vital early warning sign.
And that's exactly where AI steps in. AI, especially machine learning, is sort of uniquely suited to processing these absolutely massive data sets. It's literally built to find patterns, correlations, subtle things that, that are just too complex or too numerous for the human eye to catch consistently, especially at scale. So when we talk about using data for screening with AI, we mean leveraging this power to scan all that information, identify potential issues, and then crucially flag them for the human expert.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of like having this incredibly thorough assistant who can just review everything and say, hey, maybe look closer here.
That makes a lot of sense. So how does this actually, work in the real world? Based on the sources you looked at for this dive, where is AI really making a difference right now in this early detection space?
Well, one of the most visible areas the sources point to is radiology. Think chest x-rays, mammograms, things many of us are familiar with. AI is proving really valuable there. Take, for instance, automated nodule detection in chest x-rays. Tiny nodules. They can be early signs of lung cancer, but spotting them is notoriously difficult. They can be tiny, hidden by ribs, other structures.
Oh, I can only imagine. Just looking at an X-ray, it seems so complex already, how easy it must be to miss something small.
It's a definite challenge. And the sources indicate these AI algorithms, they're trained on millions, literally millions of images. So they learn to recognize the visual hallmarks of these nodules, even when they're faint or partly hidden.
Yeah.
They can then analyze a new X-ray and basically highlight suspicious areas with pretty high accuracy. It draws the radiologist's eye right to them.
Ah, okay.
And we saw mentions in the sources that this is actually increasing detection rates, sometimes by a fair bit, especially for those smaller, earlier stage cancers that might have been missed initially. And it's not just chest x-rays. AI is also being used to enhance mammography screening. Again, helping radiologists spot subtle signs, maybe tiny calcifications or masses, more effectively.
Okay, so it's like AI is giving them a super-powered magnifying glass and a highlighter for these medical images, helping doctors catch those really early signs they might otherwise miss. What about looking even closer at the cellular level? Tissue samples.
Yeah, that takes us into pathology.
Yeah.
And that's another area seeing, huge advancements with AI. Pathologists, they're the ones examining tissue slides under a microscope, looking for disease, especially cancers. It's incredibly detailed, very demanding work. AI systems here are being developed to act almost like a tireless first pass, a pre-screener, if you like. They can rapidly scan these whole digital slides, which can be huge, and flag regions that look potentially abnormal, maybe cancerous.
So it's not deciding this is cancer, but it's basically saying, hey, pathologist, you really need to look closely at this spot. Sorting the hay, kind of.
Precisely. Exactly that. The AI finds the potential areas of concern, unusual cell shapes, weird patterns, whatever it's trained to see, and presents those to the pathologist. This augments their expertise. So instead of meticulously scanning every single millimeter of maybe hundreds of slides, they can focus their expert judgment on the cases or the specific areas the AI has flagged. And this doesn't just potentially improve accuracy, by reducing fatigue or maybe oversight. The sources also point out it can significantly speed the whole process up.
Which means patients get critical results back faster.
Exactly. Faster diagnoses.
That really does make a lot of sense. It sounds like AI is genuinely helping these specialists be more efficient, more effective, letting the human expert focus on the really critical judgment calls. Definitely about augmenting them, not replacing them.
Absolutely. That's a key theme. The AI handles the heavy lifting, the pattern matching, across vast data. The human provides the essential medical knowledge, the context, the final diagnostic decision.
We've talked images, slides, sort of physical samples, but AI can crunch way more diverse data, right? What about, say, our genetic code? Or even data coming off patients moment to moment.
Oh, yeah, that's where it gets really fascinating. The sources definitely highlight how AI is being applied in genomics and personalized medicine for early detection. Our genetic makeup, our DNA holds clues about our risk for certain diseases. AI is pretty uniquely capable of analyzing these enormous genomic data sets. We're talking looking at millions, maybe billions of genetic markers to find specific variants, tiny changes in our DNA that are known or maybe predicted to increase the risk of developing certain conditions down the line.
Wow. So AI could potentially scan my genes and say, okay, you have a higher predisposition for X or Y. That's a form of screening before anything physical even shows up.
It's exactly right. It's risk assessment based on your genetic blueprint. And the courses also mention AI's role in speeding up the diagnosis of rare diseases. These can be incredibly hard to pin down because symptoms might be vague or overlap with more common things. AI can analyze a patient's genomic data alongside their clinical picture symptoms, labs, family history, and rapidly search for known genetic links, something a human might take, honestly, years to figure out through manual searching and testing.
Years.
Yeah, some examples in the sources showed diagnosis times for complex rare diseases being cut from years down to months, maybe even weeks. It's finding those needles in the haystack much faster. Oh, and AI is also helping in biomarker discovery, finding new biological flags, maybe specific proteins or other molecules in the blood that could signal a disease really early. That would lead to totally new diagnostic tests.
That's incredible, using AI to decode our fundamental biology to predict risk and spot rare conditions faster. And you mentioned integrating different types of data, multimodal data.
Yes, exactly. That's a really growing area. Using integrated or multimodal data, AI systems can pull information from lots of different sources at the same time. Electronic health records, imaging scans, lab results, doctor's notes, even data from wearable devices.
Like fitness trackers.
Yeah, things tracking heart rate, sleep, activity levels. By analyzing all these data streams together, AI can sometimes spot subtle patterns that just wouldn't be obvious if you looked at each piece of data in isolation.
Can you give an example? How does combining all that help detect something early or intervene?
A really powerful example the sources mention is in acute care, like in hospitals or ICUs. Think about early sepsis detection systems. Sepsis is, a life-threatening reaction to infection. Predicting when a patient might be heading towards sepsis is absolutely crucial. So AI systems can continuously monitor a patient's vital signs, their lab results, fluid intake output, medications, all sorts of clinical data points in real time. Yeah. They're looking for subtle trends or combinations of factors that might signal the early stages of deterioration, sometimes even before the clinical signs are really obvious to the team.
Whoa. So it's not just spotting a disease that's already there, but predicting that a patient is about to get seriously ill.
Precisely. Predicting impending deterioration. And this allows the clinical team to intervene proactively, sometimes hours earlier than they might have based only on traditional monitoring. And that proactive intervention can literally be life-saving with something like sepsis.
Wow.
So these systems, whether for sepsis or other kinds of patient decline, they're essentially using all that integrated data to build an early warning system, a kind of digital safety net.
Okay, so we've covered AI helping with images in radiology, with slides in pathology, analyzing our genes in genomics, and even integrating real-time data from loads of sources for these early warning systems. It really does feel like this is shifting healthcare pretty fundamentally.
It absolutely is. You can see it represents a move away from a purely reactive healthcare model. Wait for symptoms to show up, then treat the problem towards something much more proactive. By leveraging AI and all this data for sophisticated screening and early pattern finding, we're trying to anticipate problems, identify risks earlier, and catch diseases at their very earliest, most treatable stages.
Which, as you said right at the beginning, is so critical for improving patient outcomes.
Exactly. AI is really emerging as a key part of that whole proactive approach, helping build, I think, a stronger safety net for patients.
So, just to bring it all together then, AI's ability to process incredibly complex, huge data sets and spot these subtle patterns is truly starting to revolutionize how we approach early disease detection and screening across so many different medical fields, from looking at scans and slides to decoding our genes and even integrating real-time patient monitoring.
Yeah, the potential for AI to partner with healthcare professionals like this, identifying diseases earlier, it's genuinely transformative for patient care, I think. And something the sources also really underscore is that this increasing reliance on data for screening shines a big spotlight on the growing importance of how all the sensitive health data is managed, how it's secured, and how it's used responsibly in this new landscape. That's becoming critical.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's wrap this up with maybe a thought for you, the listener, to consider. If AI is enabling us to detect signs of potential illness, or maybe just risk factors earlier and earlier, sometimes long before any physical symptoms even appear, what does that fundamentally change about how we understand health itself? Does it mean we're all potentially pre-sick in some way? Or maybe does it empower us to manage our health more proactively because we have this earlier information? What does this whole shift mean for the future of how you think about staying healthy? This has been our deep dive into how AI is really reshaping early disease detection through the power of data.